Jay Shetty's book, Think Like a Monk. So if you have not read his book yet, I want you to think about and maybe going through these different topics that he discusses in his book will maybe propel you to go read some excerpts of his book or even make the purchase. Jump right in with my 5 takeaways from part 1 of Jay Shetty's Think Like a Monk. So part 1 of Jay Shetty's Think Like a Monk is titled Let Go. And let go comes from us clearing off the dust, cleaning up what has covered us in the years past. You have to think, you've been tracking along and moving along for many years. And so we've gotten a little dusty. So let me explain what I mean by that. And Jay Shetty says in this book, he asks the question, is this dust or me? And so basically he gives an example of a metaphor from a monk where one looks at a mirror covered with dust. And he equates this to your identity. The mirror is you looking in the mirror, is you looking at your identity. But is your identity really you? Is what you're showing you? Am I looking at you when I look at you? Think about it. Or are you covered in dust? Are you covered with things that aren't really a reflection of what you really are? He equates this to your identity. So when you look at a mirror that is dusty, you're not seeing your true self. You're not looking at the reflection of your true self, and others are not looking at your true self. So that's what the first part, and my first takeaway off this book kind of gets me prepared. My takeaway too, what he talks about in the book, is a discussion on values. And values, most people say they value their families, they value their friendships. Those are all great things. So Jay says, our values are not taught, but they are experienced. So you telling me that you value your family is not taught. It's something you experience. So that's takeaway 2. So Jay comes up with an activity, and there are lots of activities in this book. So that's another good reason, and that's a good explanation for explaining what your values are. He said to take an audit for a week. Take an audit of what you're doing in your life. You say you value friendships, or you say you value your family. But when you look at your week, you're spending a lot of time at work. What's more important? Is it work or is it family? You come home from work after being, having a long day. And, people are probably going to say to me, well, you have to provide for your family. We know that. But when you have free time, are you choosing to utilize your free time with your family who you value? Or are you choosing to go out and do something else that does not reflect your values? And so he wants us to do an audit. And I've done it. I've done an audit, and I recognize that I spent free time when I could be doing something towards what I value. I spent free time watching YouTube, which some of it is educational and some of it was unnecessary. Television, for example, or the news. I want to keep up with the news, yes, but that's not my real values, does not reflect my real values. Okay, so yeah, let's do an audit. Do an audit of your life and this will help you determine how much time you're putting into what you truly value versus what you are saying you value. Okay? And takeaway 3, once you've looked at your values and you have your intentions, you have to make sure that you're making value-driven decisions. I think the topic of values was very, very important in Jay Shetty's book. And he talks about value-driven decisions and filtering out what he calls the OEOs: opinions, expectations, and obligations of others. When you're using your values to drive your decision making, you need to filter out opinions, expectations, and obligations of others that do not align with your values. Think about that. I want you to drop in the comment section 2 of your values. Drop in the comment section 2 of your values so that I can see that you guys are right there with me. And while we're at it, hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so that you can become aware of my next video. So let's look back. So once you've looked at the filtering out and clearing out the opinions, expectations, and obligations of others, you really want to look at your community. It will help you to build a community of people with like-minded values. And this is still part of takeaway 3. So takeaway talks about filtering out the OEOs and looking at your community so that it can help you make better decisions. They can help support your values because you're a like-minded value system. Those people are of like-minded values. So let's move on to takeaway 4. Takeaway 4 of Jay Shetty's, part 1 of Jay Shetty's book, Think Like a Monk. He talks about anger. He talks about anger and how we tend to remain in anger. We remain in anger and it prevents us to get to forgiveness. Revenge. We become revengeful when we're angry. We say a lot of things and they're not in support of your value. These things that are occurring are not in support of your value. He talks about a father in the book that basically says that our emotions are connected to why we become revengeful. It is not that it has to do with our values. It has to do with people looking in and how you are reacting. And so you become emotional about your reactions, you become emotional about feeling angry and revengeful. And Jay talks about forgiveness and how forgiveness is linked to us being more healthy. One of our value is to live a healthy life. For example, often people say that I value good health. I value what I do in taking care of my body. I value having a healthy lifestyle. Well, if you do that, then you have to really look at forgiveness. This is important because not forgiving and being revengeful really affects your stress level. It can cause headaches. And this is all written in Jay's book and substantiated by a lot of medical professionals that stress and headaches, gut issues, all can come about from being angry and being revengeful. So Jay talks about, still part of my takeaway 4, four areas or four different transitions of forgiveness. So first is 0, which is right next to being revengeful, right? I will never forgive you. Someone says, I will never forgive you. That's 0 forgiveness. Conditional forgiveness, he says, is I'll forgive you when you apologize. You don't apologize, I won't forgive you. That is conditional forgiveness. A little bit moving over to the right area. However, still not going to help you move on. Still not focused on your values. And then the third, transformational forgiveness. In that case, you've moved over, you've said, I forgive you. I forgive you and I don't want anything in return. I forgive you. And then the final forgiveness is unconditional. We do know that often spiritual leaders are at this area where they will say, I forgive you no matter what. Because oftentimes to them, forgiveness is not tied to them. It's tied to a higher power. So there you have it. Forgiveness and how it affects your body and the stages of forgiveness, which were mentioned in my takeaway 4. My final takeaway 5. Fear. So fear is one of the ways that we are focused. One of the areas that helps us to actually move along in life. It is not sustainable, Jay says. It is not sustainable to operate by fear. It will not last. Another way we operate that we focus on is desire. We want to intentionally do something because we desire it. I desire a new Louis Vuitton purse. I do. So I am going to go out and I'm going to work extra hours. An hour, I'm going to get a part-time job so that I can meet my desire. Is that sustainable? If I'm already working 10 hours and then I go and work 5 more hours, is that sustainable? No. I desire the bag. I'm going to get the bag. But once I've gotten the bag, that's it. Not sustainable. Moving towards more sustainable intentions is duty and love. You do an activity, you do something based on your duty or you need to support your duty. And the next one is love. Your intention is love. So you are focused or using love as your intention. So Jay Shetty says that, for example, he gives an example. There is a ladder. He says, why the ladder? Fear, desire, duty, and love are the roots of all intentions. And he explains that in Sanskrit, the word for intention is sankalpa, and of it as the reason formed by one's own heart and mind, and that one strives for a goal. So your goal is to do this, but what is fueling that goal? Is it love? Is it duty? Are those the things that are fueling that goal that you have? Or is it fear? Or is it desire? So Jay basically says, not basically, clearly says that our intentions are fueled by one and are of fear. Our intentions are fueled by desire, duty, or love. Roots of all intention. But in this final takeaway, I want to read you an excerpt that is from Jay Shetty's book. He says, of course, simply having intentions isn't enough. And this is a direct quote. We have to take action to help those seeds grow. I don't believe in wishful thinking or manifesting. The idea that if you simply believe something, it will happen. We can't sit around with true intentions expecting that what we want will fall into our laps. So you have to go out and get it. You have to go out and do something about it. You cannot just sit and expect things to happen. And a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King that Jay has included in his book, Think Like a Monk. On page 77, he says, Dr. Martin Luther King says, those who love peace must learn to organize as effectively as those who love war. And that's the same concept. You have to go and do it. You have to do something about it. And that is my last and final takeaway. I hope you enjoyed our discussion on part 1 of Jay Shetty's book, Think Like a Monk. We will continue the discussion next time on part 2. And thank you so much for the good of the group. We'll see you later. Bye.